Hey guys, this is Patrick Davis, and you're listening to Shutter 16 Magazine. Hey Chris.
Hi Patrick, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for chatting today. Thanks for being flexible. I'm up in the mountains of Chattanooga. I got a show tonight, so I'm kind of running around. But good talking to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for joining us here at Shutter 16. We appreciate your time for sure.
Yeah.
So you've got a brand new single, Six String Dreams, and you're going to be releasing your fifth full-length album soon, Carolina When I Die. So tell us a little bit about Six String Dreams and how that song kind of came together.
Oh, well, I grew up with a dad who was a weekend warrior musician. One of those guys that had a real job, and then every Thursday, Friday, Saturday was playing in a honky tonk or a bar down in South Carolina. And so it comes from my own experience of growing up around the Six String Dreamers, to be honest. And then I've been in Nashville for 20 plus years now, and it's been very very good to me. But I've seen all the different variations of that dream. I grew up playing in all the cover gigs and all that stuff, and I've also been lucky enough to be on tours all over the world, and played the Ryman and these giant rooms, and then I've also played in the corner of a Mexican restaurant. So it just gives me so it came about really just straight from being honest. Me and my buddy Sadler Vaden. Sadler is the guitar player for Jason Isbell's 400 unit, and we're old friends. He's from South Carolina, and so we just sat down one afternoon and we both kind of looked at each other. I had this song title, and it happened pretty organically, and like I said, just being honest, really.
Cool. Now, I know you said you're from, growing up in South Carolina, so tell us a little bit about the title of the album that's coming up, Carolina When I Die.
Yeah. I was actually born in, can you hear me? Sorry, I switched over. I was in the car. Okay. I was born in Tennessee. I don't remember it. I was only there for about 6 months. My parents moved back home to South Carolina, where they were originally from. And back to that Six String Dreams thing, my dad was actually in Nashville trying to be a session guitar player, and then I think my mom got pregnant. They were like, "Nope, we're moving home." So I was always in South Carolina's always kind of been in my heart. Like, it doesn't matter where I am in the world, I always consider that home. And like I said, I've lived in Nashville since I graduated from the University of South Carolina in 2001. Moved up to Nashville, started writing a bunch of songs, playing a lot of music, doing all the things. But when someone asks me where I'm from, I still will always say South Carolina. And so Carolina When I Die is kind of a song that I wrote as a bit of a love letter to the state of South Carolina. And, I think it's the great thing about that song is that, I've been able to play it live now for the past little while. And you can see when people hear that song that while I'm singing about South Carolina, they're singing along to it, and they may be mouthing the words Carolina, but they're actually thinking about wherever it is they consider home. And so that's a beautiful thing to witness, and it's kind of the idea with why we write songs in the first place. So our stories actually communicate on a broader scale to everyone. You try to be as personal as you can and hope that it touches a lot of people.
Absolutely. It makes for a lot of beautiful moments live, I'm sure, with that.
Yeah.
What was the recording process like for this record? Are you involved in the production and kind of like all aspects of it?
Yeah, I just produce it myself. I always, I was lucky enough, and I write songs for Warner Chappell Publishing in Nashville. I've done that for about 20 years now, and so because of that, I've got a lot of experience in the studio, and not just with my own albums, but doing production. I've produced albums for other people over the years and done some stuff, so I kind of have a pretty good handle on all of that. So when it comes to the studio, I kind of am able to, run point on all the things. And so that's I do everything from write the songs, and then I'm smart enough to have people around me that are a lot better than I am, and so I call it my studio midnight choir, because my touring band, I'm playing in Charlotte tomorrow night, and that's what my midnight choir is, what I call it. It's a large band with horns and background singers and all that, and I also have what I call my studio midnight choir, which is my friends that, they cost way too much to take on the road and tour because they're some of the best musicians in the world. But they're the same group that I always use for my recordings. I think about, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, I kind of figured out what it was I was trying to sound like musically, and a big component of that is making sure you have the right musicians, the guys that get what you're trying to do, and maybe you kind of speak the same language, not exactly the same, but you still have you come from the same places.
Sure.
And so the guys that I use in the studio are folks that I trust implicitly with when it comes to their musicality, and when I say, hey, I want this to sound like J.J. Cale, they don't look at me like I'm a lunatic, because they actually know who J.J. Cale is and know exactly what I'm talking about. And that's kind of that's a very important, that language is very important. You want to make sure that everybody understands where they're coming from, while still being unique and having their own identity, every one of the players. But the guys that play in the studio with me are, in my opinion, some of the best musicians in the world, especially for what it is. And actually, it's not even my opinion. If you looked up their track record, you'd be like, "Holy shit!" That's kind of how the process goes.
Nice. Now, you've written, so many wonderful songs for yourself, but also for so many other artists. And as a songwriter, what would you say are the essential characteristics of a good song? What really makes a song something that stands out?
Well, I mean, there's so many variables, when it comes to a song that, depends on what you're aiming at, I guess, it's, depends on if you're talking about pop or rock or, all the things, I guess, or singer-songwriter. For me personally, it's just the story has to be, kind of airtight. The feeling has to be, I don't like things that are, I don't know. I want when someone listens to something that I had a hand in writing, or the things that I enjoy, the people that I love, I want people to hear it and go like, "Holy shit, that is great songwriting. That's a great story. I did not expect that." And that's really what the people that I love and listen to, like whether it be John Prine or whether it be, James Taylor, or whether it be Paul McCartney for that matter. It's those guys are able to capture a feeling in a moment in a way that seems obvious, like you're like, "Oh, why didn't I think of that?" But it's just very unique and very there's a craft to it. Nashville, writing for so long in Nashville helped me. It's helped me understand, it's a muscle, it's a writing, you write, it's just a muscle. You get better and better at it. And when I was a kid, it used to be one of those things where I'd have to write 200 songs in a year to hopefully get 5 or 10 that were decent, and then as you get older, you hope that you can write 20 songs in a year and 20 of them are going to be pretty good, and that's kind of what I'm always aiming at, something that is, I have a lot of heroes, and I would like to be able to sit in a round with Springsteen and Lyle Lovett and Van Morrison and think when they played, Born to Run or I don't know, Tupelo Honey, that I could at least have one song that they wouldn't laugh me out of the room with. So that's kind of yeah.
I'm sure they would not be laughing. I'm sure.
Oh no,
you'd fit right in.
But thank you. But I think you have to have those aspirations, and I think if you're not aiming for that, then what's the point? I guess.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned you've got, you're on the road and you've got a tour date coming up in Charlotte tomorrow at the Visual Light Theater. What is it that you most look forward to about the live performances?
Oh, it's the instant connection. It's I love playing on stage with musicians and everything, but it's such a, when you're in the studio, we're talking about doing an album. It's such a tedious, long process. You might record the song a year ago or 2 years ago, and then it takes, all these things have to happen for it to get out to the, for the public consumption. When you're on stage, you're right there in front of those people, and so you're walking that tightrope. And at any moment, you're teetering, either way, and you're hoping that, but you get the instant. You see them singing the chorus back to you, or you hear them go crazy when a guitar solo happens, or you're able to make them laugh or cry, and it's right there in front of you. And also, I feel it, and I think it's a drug in a lot of ways for those of us that do this for a living. That being on stage and having that feeling of just an instant connection, and that's what we all really want in this world. If it comes down to it, we all want a connection, and there's no greater connection than what music gives the audience and the performer. It's just it's a beautiful thing, and every time I get to get on stage, it's like the Dave Grohl quote. I think he said, "What's the greatest thing about playing in front of 80,000 people?" And I believe he said, "It's 80,000 people singing back the words to you for 80,000 different reasons," and that's the thing. It means something to them. It means something to you, but in that moment, there's just this connection that happens. It's such a beautiful thing. I've yet to play in front of 80,000 people. 80 people is still the same feeling.
Well, I agree with all of the above. It is all about that connection. That's why I'm a concert addict. But
yeah, for sure. That's the reason people show up. It's with all the technology and all the things that are going on today. It's easy to forget that the real thing, that human connection, is what we all actually are looking for. And I think that's the reason why live performances are more popular than possibly ever. And it's because that's what people really want. They in this social network where we're all supposed to be connected, we're actually as disconnected as ever. And so performances and concerts are really one of the last things that make people feel like, oh, no, we're in this shit together.
Yeah, 100%. You can't stream those connections, that's for sure.
That's for sure.
So tell us a little bit about Songwriters in Paradise quickly, if you could, and kind of what's going on this year, and is there any charities that are going to be involved this year?
Yeah, SIP is I created SIP about a decade ago. I got a call to go play a show in the Bahamas from a friend and a fan who had a resort down there, and I said, in lieu of me going down or me bringing a band, how about I bring down some buddies and we do basically a little songwriters weekend, and that's not a new idea. It's been done a lot of places, but what I try to do with SIP, what I figured out was that I wanted to create something that was special, where it felt more like what they do at the Bluebird Cafe in Nashville, which is a very very small group of people that are, it's intimate, it's exclusive, it's quiet. They're listening to the stories, they're listening to the songs, and that started 10 years ago in the Bahamas, and it's kind of grown into this thing now where we have 4 of them a year, and I've really honed in on that idea that it's only for 150 people a night. It's a certain pedigree of listener and performer and attendee and venue and paradise that has to be there, and so we do it in the next one is in Healdsburg, which is in Sonoma County out in California, so it's kind of wine centric, so it's music, wine, and food. And then we also do Cabo in December. Those are the 2 that are coming up this year. And SIP is not a charity. It's a for-profit organization, but I am back to that connection thing. I do believe we're all in this together. So it's I don't want to feel like I'm poaching any of these incredible places, taking away without giving something back. So we always find some local charities and auction off signed lyrics to songs, or to guitars, anything like that will help to the attendees. So we usually are able to donate a pretty healthy chunk. I think we've done about, I don't know, over the years, probably about $2 million to local charities and functions that we support, or I guess organizations we support that are charitable in those markets. And so it's pretty nice thing to do. Songwriters in Paradise is very important to me. So and it gets me back to just the basics, just a guitar on stage with one microphone and having to prove your worth.
Absolutely, it sounds wonderful. I had one last question for you before I let you go, and it's sometimes really, really hard to answer, but give it your best shot.
All right.
If you were going back and you grew up in a musical household, your dad played guitar, what is your first musical memory that kind of made you fall in love with music?
Yeah, I was always around music, but I didn't really know that it was kind of, I guess, ingrained in my DNA until I was probably about 14 or 15. I remember there's a few moments where I kind of started noticing things that I guess had always been around. I'd always grown up going to bars and restaurants when I was a kid. I remember my dad in the corner, but I didn't really pay much attention. That was just what my dad did. He did work. He was at work. It didn't matter. But I do remember one thing that really was what transfixed me on the guitar and music was I heard Led Zeppelin was happening. You know, you're 14 or 15 and you're kind of figuring out some things that are cool about the world. And I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. And then I heard the song Tangerine, and I remember hearing the guitar and recognizing like, well, that doesn't sound that hard to play. And so I actually walked in and asked my dad if he'd show me how to play Tangerine by Led Zeppelin, which actually is pretty hard to play once if you do it right. But at the time, I can still remember learning an A minor and figuring out how to do that first little lick and being like, and I was hooked. I was like, I'm in. Yeah, that was a pretty big moment. And I think about the same time I actually did. I was driving and I asked my dad. I'd heard this song on the radio, and I go, Dad, I heard this great song. He's like, okay, what's it called? I was like, I think it's called Lay Low. He's like, Lay Low, okay. He's like, how's it go? And I was going, Lay Low, da 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 da, Lay Low. It's Layla. I was like, he goes, Layla. I was like, oh, okay, that's what they're saying. I thought it was Lay Low.
My absolute favorite song of all time, by the way.
It is. It's so funny. I can still remember coming home and my dad just laughing, just dying. He's like, Layla, sit down, son. We're going to play you Eric Clapton, Derek.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Patrick, for taking the time to chat with me today.
No, thank you, Chris. Thank you very much.